We've had some really big news when it comes to Aion 2. We've actually seen some gameplay, we've seen combat, and a lot more. Some of it is looking pretty decent, some of it looking a little bit underwhelming. Let's jump in, let's talk about it. So today there was a live stream and I'm basically going to play footage of that live stream. Keep in mind that there'll be like the two guys from the stream on like in the corner and stuff like that. But they spoke about a lot of different things. And then they showed the character creator, and then eventually they showed like this dungeon and some of the combat. The first thing they did is that they looked through the on-site focused group test that they had. We've already gone through some of the leaks from that, so we're not really going to go into it. And then they kind of do this like fact check section. What can I say? We're going to fact check all of the fake news. But here there were actually some interesting like question and answers. For example, with the skill slots, even though on the UI later it shows around about like 12, they say that there's upwards of like 40 skill slots. However, I think what they're saying here is that some of the skill bars will change depending on the context that you're doing. Kind of like combos, I think, but maybe not. I'm not sure if they're including potions and consumables in that, because on the actual UI there's two bars. There's the abilities and then there's the consumables on top of that. It's around about 12 of each. They confirmed that whilst there will be cosmetics for sale when it comes to the wings, the game has a lot of flying, that is purely cosmetics that are going to be for sale. There'll be no actual power attached to it that you can buy. However, I think there is actually power attached to the wings. It's just something that you get in game, and the wings themselves are cosmetic purely. That's not to say that this game won't have pay to win. I mean, it pretty much sounds like it will. The flight in PvP, they want it to be like this strategic choice and you'll be able to knock people out of the air. A lot of people are a little bit worried that it'll completely demean the movement because you'll just be able to fly away. They're testing that, I think. They do say that there is no auto combat. The game is fully manual in that sense, at least on PC. One of the translations that I'm reading right now says that they actually said that on mobile there will be semi-automatic skill usage. A bit of a concern there. Now, it's worth noting that this game is straight up a mobile and PC game. I think the clients are going to be very similar, but what they're saying here is that they're not expecting the mobile players to be able to do like, you know, PvP on a high level or even the PvE on a high level. That will be best reserved for PC only. And they've kind of moved away from the mobile focused development to be more PC-like. Obviously, for a lot of people, the idea of PC and mobile is a big yikes. How much of the game had to be held back because it was also going to release on mobile? Yep, that's a genuine question and one that you obviously could be concerned about. They say they want mobile to be because, you know, not everybody in Korea has a PC and they want to have everybody involved. But yeah, for PC users, that's going to be a bit of a concern. They then go on to talk about the type of combat that will be in the game. And in this regard, it actually sounds really good. The PvE seems very fleshed out, and the PvP options pretty cool sounding as well. Now, I've not been able to fully transcribe or translate the exact type of content that each one is, but there are these things called nightmare dungeons, sealed dungeons, outposts, and awakening battles. They seem to be more for the solo PvE. I think some of them will be like standard kind of like dungeon affair, and the others will be effectively these waved time modes. They did mention something about invasions. Apparently in one of the PvE modes, you're going to have it so that enemies can come in, like PvE could come in, but that sounds like it's going to be optional. There's obviously going to be group content, which will be dungeons, transcendence, subjugations, and 8-player raids. The party size is 4, and then a raid is 8 because it's 2 times 4 is basically 2 groups. For the PvP, they said there's going to be 1v1 arenas, 4v4 arenas, again, that's the party size, 8v8 battleground of some sort, and then it's the Abyss and I think the Invasions. I could have missed one there, but maybe I'm thinking the Invasions is counting in the same PvE and PvP, but I might be mistaken. We're doing it in the order that they did it, and the next thing that they show is a live demonstration of the character creator. Now, this character creator looks fantastic. It does look very sort of standard Unreal Engine. Like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, that's like Bella Torres, that's like Throne of Liberty, that's like Chrono Odyssey, except maybe not as extreme as Chrono Odyssey, but like every UE game at this point is just looking like this. However, it did look really nice. If character creators can look nicer than other character creators, this one is obviously up there as being some of the best, I think. And yes, you will be pleased to know that there is a boob slider. Not only is there a boob slider, they spent a good amount of time looking at the breasts. These guys are serious Kumas, and I think this is a Kuma game for sure. In fact, they obviously tweaked with the boob sliders, and there's a variety of different boob sliders. And then as soon as they got into the game, like your first real look at the game that is actually being played in front of you is them running towards the camera, but kind of like stopping and basically having the boobs jiggle. I mean, I'm not against it, but it's just, I mean, it was unusual for me. I'll make sure that I play the footage of it so you can see what I mean. Let me know if you're a Kuma or not, if you want to. They then demonstrate a couple of different things. They demonstrate the flight. My concern is that, you know, what the feedback said, basically, I'm a little bit concerned that the flying might just negate absolutely everything else. However, apparently there will be like certain restrictions on where you can do it and maybe how long you can fly for. It sort of looks cool, but that will be the main way you play the game, I think. There are mounts, there are pets and stuff like that. They do show off the store a little bit, but I think this is just completely like work in progress. And there appear to be 3 currencies, like an in-game gold, which I think the auction house is going to have the in-game gold. And then there's 2 other currencies. One of them I think will buy dungeon tokens, but I don't think the auction house is going to use that currency. I don't think it's like Throne of Liberty in that sense. Now, I will say personally, I found the UI overall to be completely underwhelming, which is just as well because it sounds like they're actually going to rework this and redo the UI. It's not like the worst thing in the history of the universe, but it's definitely not good. As for the movement and the combat and stuff like that, there does appear to be 2 types of combat. You've got the action mode and you've got the tab target mode. Action combat mode, very similar to Throne of Liberty, very similar to Ashes of Creation if you're familiar with that. You basically look where you're looking, and then if your cursor is over an enemy, your abilities will hit that enemy. Now, you don't need to be ultra precise there, they just will go to the target. It's effectively like tab target, but when you move your mouse, your whole screen kind of moves with you. And then there's a tab target mode where, you know, you literally just click the enemy, you do your abilities and it's facing the enemy. I think most people will probably play in the tab target mode, even if the action combat mode is more fun, because the tab target mode will just simply be more efficient. And then when they actually get into the combat, this is where a lot of people are sort of like a little bit more questionable about it. The dungeon that they show off, whilst the graphics of the game overall are pretty nice, the dungeon looks a little bit repetitive. It doesn't look the most like beautiful that it could have possibly have looked, I think. There's like one long hallway that doesn't look particularly very special. I personally don't mind the graphics, but I could definitely see if there's not enough like characters and enemy types, then I think it could look a little bit bland. But I personally did enjoy the mechanics of the boss fights and stuff like that. The actual combat, it's hard to analyze when you're not actually playing it, but my personal opinion is it's still got like the super fast attacks. It still has this thing where when you're attacking an enemy and you try and run away, your character basically faces the enemy, even if you're trying to move away. But it did look a lot more, I'm going to use the word mobile, and I don't mean like mobile phone. It looked like a lot more fluid, a lot more movement based. I'm just going to show you the combat. You can kind of like make up your own mind there. I personally don't really like this Korean super fast, super like glittery, like every ability seems to be glowing. They have the same kind of Stellarite, which I think was in Aion. It's got a different name, and that like goes up every attack and stuff like that. I think it kind of looks like combat if you have ADHD. I don't mean to be rude, but it just gives you a little bit of a sense of what I'm talking about there. It's just very flashy, very busy. The actual mechanics are like obviously just like circles and lines on the floor and stuff like that. There's a bit that reminds me of New World actually, where there's like these gates, these fire, and you have to like weave your way through. That kind of stuff I enjoy. Overall, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't say it was amazing, but it also wasn't as bad as I think a lot of people are saying. I personally think that the game is effectively going to be very similar to Throne of Liberty, but a little bit better. The combat looked a little bit better. The graphics looked a little bit better. The UI looked a little bit worse. It is definitely coming to mobile, and the monetization I think could be a little bit worse, because they spoke about how in the dungeon there's these 2 kinds of like boxes you get when you do a dungeon, 2 kinds of rewards. You get the rewards straight from the boss, which I think is like just standard stuff that you can sell, buy, trade, whatever. And then there's going to be these like bind on pickup boxes that I think you have to spend your tokens on. Those tokens, I'm led to believe, or I think the idea is you'll be able to buy those tokens. Now, I don't think the business model was fully confirmed. We're pretty sure it's a free-to-play game, but beyond that, we don't know how egregious the pay to win will be right now. I'm a little bit torn on this. Like, I think this game is not going to be one where, you know, you play it for 10 years or what have you. But I think there's going to be a lot of people out there who can play this for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months and get a lot of fun. Now, obviously, by the time this comes to the West, probably late next year, there will probably be a lot of changes. It's going to come out in Korea, we think, in November. And then probably the West. It's currently scheduled for summer in the West, but let's assume late next year. And I think by then there'll be so many changes that, you know, a lot of what I said in this video might not make any sense. However, the underlying thing is I think this is not a revolution when it comes to MMOs. It is, however, looking like a relatively competent Korean tab target MMO. Now, you might be instantly turned off by that, but the reality is you're either playing this or you're playing an existing MMO, of which, you know, a lot of them are starting to show their age, have issues here and there and stuff like that. So Chrono Odyssey is not going to be until the late next year. Arcade's not late next year. The slim pickings, basically. And I think maybe playing this for a couple of months, very valid option. For you, for me, maybe. We'll see. There's going to be another broadcast, I think, in September. They're going to show off the mobile gameplay, so that'll be interesting. Look at a couple of the other classes. I think the class that we saw today was basically like an archer or a ranger. And they're going to show off PvP, which will be very interesting indeed. If I've missed some of the communication, obviously some of the translation, then it's my bad. Some of the exact specifics, you know, I'm not going to get that. I think there's a couple of the content creators who are going to do exactly like word for word translation. I think like, you know, other content creators are going to break down each thing. I'm not sure I'm going to do that. I'm probably not going to do that. But I am definitely keeping an interest in this game. Although I appreciate it's not God's gift to MMOs. Let me know your thoughts though. I'm kind of curious. Are you just like Korean pay to win slop? Or are you at least genuinely interested and think you can get a couple of months out of this? Let me know. For now, have a most beautiful day. And subscribe. Goodbye.